Hi, boys and girls. It's Pastor Kristen here with our friend, Mr. Peter. We couldn't meet tonight because, as you guys know, somebody was sick last week. But I thought it was really important that we celebrate Remembrance Day and we take time to thank all of our veterans and people that serve in our armed forces. So today we have, again, our friend, Mr. Peter here, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about himself and also about how he got to know God and what God has done in his life as a soldier.
Hi, boys and girls. Wish you were here, but let's have some fun anyways. Basically, as you see, I am in uniform, and I will get into a little bit of what that uniform is and the different color hat that I'm wearing right now that, as you see, is red. I'll talk about that in a little bit, actually. So my name is Peter, and like some of you guys, I actually grew up in a church. Now, the difference between that was, unlike some, I did not know God. I believed in a God. I kind of felt that there's something a little more than just the wind in the air, but I just didn't believe and I didn't know the God that I do know now. And let's just say, if I would have known God back then, like I know him now and how I trust him now, life would have been so much easier. So I grew up in a Catholic church, and I was actually an altar boy. So what an altar boy is they dress you up in a really nice robe, you get up on the altar, you actually serve with the mass, with the priest. I knew all the saying, all the prayers, I knew how to say the Our Father back and forth in French, all the certain things I had to say. It meant nothing to me because I didn't know God. I had no idea, who I was praying to, why I was saying it, and it literally was just, a song and a dance that I did for a half hour. As I said, I did believe that there was a little bit more, but I didn't know how much he loved me. I didn't know how much he cared for me, and I didn't know that he was ready, moments notice just to dive into my life and just, fix some parts and wreck others. And sometimes you have to wreck some parts of your life in order to, build up on that spots. So I grew up, as I said, in a small town named Bethel. It's much smaller. If you think Stratford's small, take like a quarter part of Stratford, and that's all of that. There's probably about 15,000 people, if that, and that's all.
I thought this was small in comparison to Cambridge.
Oh, Cambridge, yes. Well, that is Toronto compared to Bathurst.
Fair enough.
So when I started getting older, I started meeting more people who tried to introduce me to God, try to tell me what's to them was simple, pray. And I know you guys know how to pray, and I'm sure you could probably teach me some things on how to pray and teach me a few tricks. But I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know it was easy. It's just being heartfelt and honest to God. He knew my heart already. He just wanted me to give him some of my time, and just I didn't know that. So I treated God like I treated a gumball machine. I put the quarter in, I put the prayer in, I'd make the turn, and sometimes I got the prayer that I wanted, sometimes I didn't. And at those times I thought God was saying no. A lot of times I thought God was, saying, no, I'm not going to give this prayer. But what I realized was God was saying not yet. There's a lot of prayers that I asked God. There's probably a lot of prayers, the same prayers that you guys are asking right now, about your future and even about, the school you want to go to and the friends you want to meet. And I would pray, and God would say not yet. One of the prayers I remember actually is, there's a really cute girl in my class, and my wife is watching, but she was very cute, and I was just in love with her, and I prayed to God, and I said, God, just give me this girl. I want, that's all I want. I don't care about anything else. I just pray for this girl. And it's times like now that I'm glad that sometimes God says no. And I said, like I said, I know what's best for you. I know I got a plan for you. Matter of fact, the Bible even says in Jeremiah 29:11 that for I know the plans that I have for you, declare the Lord. Plans to prosper and not harm you, to give you hope for the future. And I know that now, and now that, you know, I say these prayers and I don't see God moving on my time, I look back at the Bible and God has a plan for me. Maybe this isn't part of his plan. Maybe he's closing a door, and, you know, a lot of people say, you know, God closes the door, he'll leave a window open. Sometimes when God doesn't want you to go somewhere, he'll close the door, he'll close the window. You know, he'll say, no, I got something better for you over here. And as you'll hear in my life, I did have a lot better. So go ahead.
No, so that's really good.
So as I got older, God gave me a heart for service. He knew where he wanted me to be. He put a thought of love in either policing or military. A little spoiler alert, I'm a military police officer, but we will get into that in a minute, okay? So he put a heart of policing and being in the military. And I decided, I said, you know what, I'm going to join the military part-time. And so in my time with the Bathers, I joined up with my first regiment, the 2nd Royal New Brunswick Regiment, and I became an infantry soldier. And basically what that is the guys that you see on the movies who are out there fighting the bad guys, living in the trenches, those are what we did. We lived in holes, we shot every weapon that we could, we trained for the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And the training was hard. No sleep sometimes, marching in the rain, you know, eating army food. You know, you think, you know, you have a problem eating your vegetables. Come with me. I'll give you some army food. We'll have a talk after that.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, even though the training was hard, I found myself kind of in a spot where I didn't feel like I belonged. People weren't much friendly with me. They didn't really treat me like I was supposed to be there. And although I wanted to quit, God kind of laid it into my heart. He says, "This is not what I have planned for you, but I need you to do this. I need you to continue on. Keep taking your steps." And I mean, you know, Bible talks a lot about, especially with the Israelites, you know, how God, the walls of Jericho, you know, how God tells them, like, you know, I need you to keep going. You know, I mean, like, that's kind of how I felt. I was, you know, marching around. Like, I don't see any change in my life. God, you keep telling me to go, and I'm going to go. And, you know, and just like the Israelites, thank God, they did not stop marching. And those walls came down. And I'll tell you, the walls, you know, came down for me, and God opened up a whole new world. It was amazing. So in 2006, this is where God really kind of placed it into my heart of service. 2006, I volunteered to go to Afghanistan. Now, the kids might not remember, Afghanistan was a war way overseas in the desert, and a lot of Canadian soldiers went, a lot of my friends went, and some of them didn't come. And so what happened was I decided I'm going to go and during the training, something happened, and it was in God's plan that I was not to finish the training, and I was to get sent home. And I was devastated. I was like, God, give me the training, give me the thing I'm doing. The heart of a soldier, and now I'm being sent home. And, you know, and my friends are going overseas to fight, and going overseas and getting hurt. And like I said, some of them didn't come home, and these are people that I knew and I loved. And at that time, I was just very upset, and I was very confused with God. And, you know, but once again, God knows your heart. God wants you to talk to him. You know, doesn't want you to be a false worshiper. He wants you to be, you're upset. And that's why I had to learn, you know. Yeah. But the one thing I learned is that I couldn't sit around. I had to find something to do. So when I got home, I started looking for jobs. And as I told you before, I wanted to be a police officer. I had the heart of a police officer. So I applied for police services. And I applied everywhere in Ontario, everywhere in Canada, when I say everywhere, I mean like from east to south. No one was hiring. No one wanted me. And I just got that feeling like, wow, this is where my life is. I can't even get a job. didn't feel like I was going to go anywhere. I didn't feel like I was going to succeed in life. And I forgot to tell you, God reveals himself in certain ways. He reveals himself to people in certain ways. He'll never make a joke to a serious person. He'll always reveal himself in a way. Now, for me, God reveals himself in a way like the aha moments. Like, look at this, I'm going to show you something. And one night, I was reading a newspaper after receiving another letter saying I'm not going to be getting a job at the police officer. In the newspaper, local newspaper, once again, 17,000 people, 15,000 people, a once-a-week newspaper, and I see an ad about this big. No word of a lie, it was about this big, and it says, do you want to be a police officer? Success College. And it was in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I was like, it's just sometimes when God just lays it on your heart, he's like, this is where I want you to go. And everywhere else has turned you down, and I'm going to open a door for you, And so I applied, and I went down and I went to Halifax, and they actually, I got accepted. I was so happy. I just felt my life was just, getting ready to go. At this time, God placed people into my lives, friends, some family members, and I felt now was time. I wanted to get to know God. I wanted to, who is this God? And it was my time to start seeking, and I wanted to seek Him with all my heart. And so when I first got to Halifax, I was driving down the main road, Lower Sackville, but it's part of Halifax Regional. And there's this church in the Halifax Regional called the Rock Church, big church. This is on the weekday, so boys and girls, you know yourself. Sunday morning, you come in, everyone's here, the pastors are here. If you show up on the weekday, you may catch a pastor, you may not. They work from home. But I said, you know what, it's a Monday, I'm gonna walk into this church. And as I did, I met the lead pastor, the head pastor, which was Pastor Russ Conway. And he talked to me, he introduced me to some people, and he put me in contact with people my age, and even people who were older, who knew God more, and who've been through what I was about to go through, this whole new thing about becoming a Christian. And so Sunday morning, yeah.
That's awesome.
So as I said, I got plugged into the church, and as you know, there's a prayer that that comes from we use from Romans about that if you confess Jesus as your Savior with your lips, and you believe in your heart, you're saved. And I remember there was days at that church that I would say that prayer. I didn't even know I felt nothing. And then one day we were worshiping. And now some of you, I don't know how some kids worship. I was a very shy worshiper. You gotta remember, I grew up in a Catholic church. There's no raising of hands. Very shy. And one morning I was singing a song, How Great Is Our God. And before I even knew it, I had my hands just raised up like this. And I was singing at the top of my lungs. And in my heart and in my mouth, I said, Jesus, you are Savior. You are my best friend. You are like, and just like that, my life changed. I felt happier. And you gotta remember, I was going to a police college. Not everyone at police colleges are Christian. I also worked as a security guard for a lot of the bars downtown Stratford. A lot of my coworkers were very rough guys. And here I am coming in saying, you guys, you'll never believe this. This is what I want you to know. I want to introduce you to this guy named Jesus. And some of the guys, Pete, you know what, you're brainwashed. You know what, I learned something. Sometimes you need your brainwashed. There is so much out there. There is so much on social media, and especially if you're not a Christian yet, you need a good scrubbing, and you need to let God just come in and just, like I said, wreck yourself, so that He can start building up and building you into the person He knows you want to be before you even know it. So my next step after becoming a Christian was to get baptized.
Yes.
Full immersion baptism. I
Yes,
was
sir.
excited, but I still had doubt. And boys and girls, I want to let you know right now, you can be a Christian, you can still have doubts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can tell them about our friend Thomas.
Yep.
You know, our friend Peter in the Bible. They were, you know, followers of Jesus, and even they had doubt. So when I was
gonna say, and Jesus was right there with them too, right? So
exactly, you know, imagine. And so, you know, God had placed it on my heart that He was going to give me another aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
One of those little I showed you things. And so we were about to get baptized, and there's this lady in front of me, and she said, I want God to pray for me. And at this time, I did not believe in healing. I believed that, yes, Jesus is real, He saved me from hell, I'm going to be in heaven. That was a Jesus time thing. That was, you know, that was healing from back then. That doesn't happen anymore. And she got in the baptism tank, and she started coming down the stairs, and all of a sudden, she falls right on her knee. The knee that we just prayed for. And now you have to imagine the pastor didn't know anything. Pete, come on up here. And I'm like, look, and she gets up, and she starts moving. And she says, I think God healed my knee. And she walked away.
That's incredible.
It was like, and once again, one of those aha moments. And like God just came up and said, Pete, you'll not always see it, but I'm still the God that heals. I'm still the God of yesterday, today, and forever.
Amen.
You know? And I told the pastor this, and he laughed about it. He said, that's the God I serve. And, you know, that's the God I serve now. And it's like, it's amazing, you know, when I feel, you know, my faith dwindling, I feel myself falling backwards and slipping backwards, which I do sometimes. We all sometimes slip backwards. You gotta remember, you know, why you started the fight, why you started, you know, walking with God, and what He showed you.
Yeah.
So, after about a year, I finally graduated. Just like that, I got a phone call from the Canadian Forces, and they said, we want you to be a Canadian Forces military police officer.
That's awesome.
It was. So, basically my job was I was going to be a police officer, and I don't dress like this. This is actually what I dress when I go on missions overseas. I actually look like a police officer. I wear a black uniform, I have a gun belt, I have all the tools that a Stratford police officer would have. So I decided, you know what? God answers prayers. I'm going to make a list, and I'm going to start, you know, and if you guys haven't started making prayer lists, I like, just start doing it. And once you start seeing yourself cross those prayers off, like, fine, like, just say, God, how great are you? This is awesome, you know? So I made this, and some people might have said that it was, you know, a little selfish. I said, God, I want some me stuff. I want to go back to Halifax, because the training was in Ontario.
Right.
And I said, I want to go back to Halifax. I want to meet a girl, and I have the kind of girl that I had in my head. And I said, I want a family. And the thing about God is He knows me more than I know myself. And He was going to show me that these are prayers that He's going to answer His way. A lot of them are not the way that I wanted to answer it, and I would not have it any other way now. I'm glad God knows a lot more than I do. So I got to the police academy, and like I said, it was in Ontario, born in Ontario. Okay, can I be serious for a second?
Mm-hmm.
As a kid in New Brunswick, I hated Ontario. I didn't know anything about it.
Yep.
I knew that the drivers in Ontario were faster and meaner, and so in my head, now you remember I was a kid at this time, so I didn't know anything more. In my head, I said, God, I don't want to be here any longer than I have to. Don't send me to Ontario. Send me back to Halifax. And yeah, God, like I said, I'm glad God knows better. And as you obviously you see, I'm in Ontario. And so, spoiler alert, God answered my prayer, and He said, no, I'm going to send you to Ontario. I'm going to show you some things. But when I asked for New Brunswick and Halifax, I was told, you're not going to I was done. I was devastated. I was like, nah, this is it. I'm not going to get it. And then all of a sudden I heard God say, trust me. And sometimes we wonder, what is that voice I'm hearing? Is it God? Is it me? Is it the devil? You know, because those are three people that talk to us all the time. And one thing that Pastor Chad always says is, God will never tell you something negative. God, if you hear something good, most times it's from God.
Yep.
If you question yourself, a lot of times it's probably me. And then when you hear something negative, a lot of times it's from the enemy. And so I had this feeling of peace, and it was God saying, trust me. And so when God says trust you, once again, I'm a Christian. I was a Christian at this time. I had a prayer list. I was praying. I was going to church, good old Pentecostal church in Barrie, Ontario. Shout out to Highway Church. Awesome place. But I said, all right, God, wow me. I have so much doubt in me now. I trust you. I give it to you. So on my graduation day, my sergeant came up to me and he said, Trenton or Kingston? And that was all he said, Trenton or Kingston? And I said, Kingston? And he said, awesome, you're going to go to Kingston. And that's how I found out that I was getting close to Kingston. So imagine, you finish high school, and a lot of your, or middle school, for some of the kids that are in middle school right now, and all of a sudden someone comes up to you and says, "You want to go to Shelburne or Orangeville?" You have no idea what he's saying. You make a choice like that, and something that God has put on your heart. And now you gotta trust. Okay, God, I'm trusting that I made the right choice. I've now dedicated my life to the military. I'm dedicating my life to Kingston. So when I was in Kingston, best 2 years of my life, 2.5 years before I met my wife. I'll get to that in a second. I decided to get myself plugged into a church. And boys and girls, not all of you will stay in Stratford. Some of you will walk out. Some of you will go places for university, colleges, Bible colleges, hopefully for a lot. Some of you, plug yourself into a church. Get out there. Don't wait for Sunday morning. Walk in on a Monday afternoon with coffee and say, here I am. Let's talk. And that's what I did. I found this church called Kingston Gospel Temple. And I walked in and I said, hey, this is who I am. I'm from Bathurst. And this little stout man came out for him behind the desk. And he's passed now, but he was very, very, he knows the stories I tell him. Very loving man. And he looks at me, he's like, Bathurst! And I said, what? He's like, Acadie Bathurst? And that's how we used to say Bathurst, Acadie Bathurst, because we're French. And I said, yeah. He said, my name is David Blackmore. I am the pastor here at this church. I am from Bathurst. What are the odds? Coincidences? Don't believe them anymore.
Yep.
The odds are just too high that I went from Bathurst, Halifax to Borden, being told that I'm going to Kingston, and I walk into a church. And Kingston is 300,000 people, huge city, lots of churches. And the first church I walk into, the pastor is from Bathurst. He plugs me in. And so I started my policing time, and I policed. And through my time there, God had shown me some things, and He saved my life in a lot of things. And as a police officer, He allowed me to save other lives and touch people by just being in their lives and helping them. And then it was time God was going to answer another prayer. And once again, God answers prayers on His time. And so a lot of us are praying right now for things we want to see tomorrow. Unless it's on God's time. And so I used to go to a little club. On a military base, they have clubs, okay? And these are clubs for soldiers to go. It's soldiers only. It's a place that soldiers can go and just unwind and relax and be with other soldiers. And so I go to this club, and I'm sitting down and at the table, and this guy is sitting next to me, asking me about who I am, and I start talking to him. And says, my brother was also a military police officer. And that's the only reason he decided to talk to me, is because if you don't know, on military bases, people don't like military police officers. They think we're mean. They think, we arrest them for no reason because we're arresting soldiers. No one likes to see a soldier under arrest. But if someone breaks the law, we have to uphold them to the law. If they speed, we have to give them a ticket. And so on the base, no one talks to military police officers. He decided to talk to me. And it's only because his brother was also a military police officer. And so he comes up and we started getting to know each other. And then a couple weeks later, he comes up to me. He says, hey, would you like to meet a girl? And I said, sure. And he says, my wife has a friend in university with her. And she just broke up with her boyfriend and she's looking for a nice guy. And Pete, you look like a nice guy. Let's get you involved. And he shows me this picture, little picture about yay big. And it was a picture of my now wife. Oh my goodness. You know when you're in love. You know what puppy dog love is, but when you're in love, that's all I could think of, this girl. And I said, I want to meet her. And we set up a date. And right at that time, I went over to his house for dinner and I saw her for the first time in my life. And I said, God, that's the girl I want to marry. And God said, I know.
That's so cute.
And yeah, it's like, and I knew I was going to marry this girl. She did not have a ring on her finger yet, but I knew I was going to marry this girl. And so we dated for a bit until 2015. And 2015 was a hard year. I had to take off my policing hat and put on my soldier helmet. In 2015 of May, I got a phone call saying that the country of Nepal just had a major earthquake. Thousands of people have been injured, displaced, many people have died. And they said, we're sending you up. You have 2 days to go to a military base where you're going to fly out of, which is Trenton, and you're going to fly to Nepal, and you're going to help these people. And I told my wife at the time, she was obviously upset. We were girlfriend, boyfriend at the time, so I didn't know. She said she'd wait for me. She did. But I didn't know what was going to happen. I heard that there's earthquakes every day, and that more buildings were coming down, and more people were getting hurt. And I said, God, I feel nervous. I feel like I should be scared. So I'm going to pray. And I didn't pray hard. I didn't pray long. I just said, God, I'm going somewheres. Please keep me safe. Keep everyone else safe. And we landed in Nepal after a 24-hour flight in a big plane. And they told us, they said, we have a hotel right next to the airport. And we were going to put you guys in this hotel, but there's no Wi-Fi. So because we had to send up reports every day, they needed Wi-Fi. And they said, we're going to have to send you to a hotel in the downtown Kathmandu in Nepal. Once again, millions of people in the city. I was a little boy from New Brunswick. And they said, we're going to send you to downtown Kathmandu, and there's a hotel there for you. We got there. We got in our room to get a briefing. And they said, there's been some earthquakes and some aftershocks. You'll feel them. We'll let you know if you have to get out of the building. And at that moment, we felt the table start shaking, just like that. And that was a small one. And then all of a sudden, the entire building started shaking. And they said, everyone out of the building. And this is my first earthquake. It measured to a 7.2 magnitude. And if you want to know what that feels like, if you're ever in a bouncy house, next time you have a bouncy house here, have a bunch of strong men shake that bouncy house. You can't even stand. You're falling down. And God just gave me swift wings under my feet. Says, get out, Pete. Get out. And, parts of the building were coming down. Glass was breaking. We got out, and we actually had to sit down. Shaking was so bad, we actually had to sit on the ground and allow the shaking to be done, because if you didn't, you were going to fall and you would hit your head. And we found out that after that shaking, a lot of buildings in Kathmandu came down. We found out that the building that we were supposed to be in, the room that we were supposed to be in at that time, collapsed at the hotel that they wanted us to originally be in. Collapsed. We're talking possibly no one would have survived. I didn't see it, but they said where we would have been in collapsed. It just came down on itself. And I knew, I said, God, you're gonna walk me through some stuff today. And anyone who thinks that being a Christian is easy, let's look at the Bible, how many people trusted in God. And God still said, I'm going to bring you into a battle. I'm going to put you into a fight with a giant. I'm going to put you in a battle with 300 men. You're going to go up against thousands of men. God still had things for us to do, and He says, Pete, I got things you need to do here in Nepal, but I'm going to keep you safe. And so about a month later, staying in that same hotel, God kept His promise. He kept me safe. As I was leaving the hotel that day to fly out of Nepal, a man came in and he had a red sign. And I took pictures of it. I could show it to you later. It was a sign, and on the sign it said, "Do not enter. Building unstable. Entry may cause injury or death. Bottom floor columns, sheer destroyed." So we were in this building for a month, and I was on the 6th floor of a hotel room. Now everyone thinks 6th floor is like 1, 2. No. In Nepal, it's 1, 2, 3. So I was on the 6th floor in a building that was unstable due to the earthquake that happened when I first got there. And God kept it standing. Some people might try to say, well, it was a strong building. Yeah, well, you know what? I serve a strong God.
Amen.
And to me, that was God saying, hey, I'm gonna show you something. Mm-hmm. And another aha moment.
Yeah.
So after that, I got home and I asked my wife to marry me. Mm-hmm. And we got married. And that's where a lot of my life started to unfold. My wife had to move back to Stratford. She's from Stratford. She goes to this church actually, and looks at the cutest girl in church, and that is her. But she had to come to Stratford while I lived in Kingston. So my next prayer, God, I want a family. I can't do a family like this. And I said, God, you need to get closer to Borden, closer to Kingston. And the closest base is Borden, which is 2 hours away from Kingston. But it's a lot closer. Closest base to Stratford is Borden, which is 2 hours away from Stratford. But it's a lot closer than the 5-hour, 7-hour drive on the 401 from Kingston to Stratford. And so I put up, and the military is not, I want to go here and go there. It's, I would like to go here. If there's a position, they may send you. Okay. And I asked to go to Borden, and my captain came up, and she said, there's no way you're going to Borden. No way. And once again, I left it in God's hands. I said, God, and I was, and boys and girls, you need to understand, sometimes we pray, we get on our knees, but sometimes it's because we can't stand. We don't have the strength to stand. And I was so sad. And I just got down and said, God, you took me this far. What is going on? And I prayed and I said, I need to go. I need to be with my wife. You made everything feel right. I need, please, God. And once again, God's timing. So I spent a little bit of time back and forth. And then one day, I get a phone call from my captain. She says, you need to come into the office right now. And I came in, and she had a folder on her desk. She pushed the folder towards me. And she said, what does that say? And I opened it up, and it was a posting message to Borden. The place where she said I would never get. And she said, you must know someone up there. You must know someone pretty important. I mean, at that point, you want to say, yep, I do, you know. But, yeah, I did. So, I called my wife. Thank God. He just, once again, God who answers, God who provides. He was, and so finally, I have one more thing left on my list. And you have to understand, this is my original prayer list. Boys and girls, your prayer list, you keep adding to it because you're going to get new trials. Because there's things that I wanted, I just added to the list. Yeah. And there's things I wanted to change in my life to get closer to God, drop things in my life that I added to my list. There's that one more thing that, I wanted from God that I prayed for, and it was on my list, and it was, I wanted a family. And to have a family, you need a baby. Lo and behold, we found out my wife got pregnant in 2018 after we got married. And in 2019, I was working. And it was kind of a rainy, it was a very cold day. And I get a phone call from my wife saying, I am in labor. I'm having the baby. It's coming now. Now, long story short, babies are like God. They come on their time. And my daughter, she decided she's coming. Important, it's a 2-hour drive away. So I decided I need to get off work. So I go to my partner. I said, look, dude, you need to call someone in because I'm leaving right now. And I drove. And I'm not going to say how fast I drove. I should have given myself a ticket. That's how fast it was. But then all of a sudden, as I was driving, a fog just came down. And I couldn't see 2 feet in front of me. It was like someone put like that. I couldn't see. I'm like, God. And I was getting mad. I was so angry. And, God knows when you're angry with him. And once again, he wants you to talk to him. Like, if it's between talking to God and being quiet, talk to God. And God knew I was angry. I was like, God, what are you doing? Like, my wife's in labor, and my mother-in-law was texting me, and, I can't look at the text because I'm driving. So I'm like, all I can hear is my phone going off. And I said, I just lift this fog. And I had to slow down. I had to slow down to probably way below the speed limit. And all of a sudden, I turned my wheel just a little, and I felt my car spin. And I was like, this road is all ice. God sent a fog. And some people might say, well, the fog is there, and you have to remember, as a police officer, I've seen accidents caused on these roads at these times, and because of the road conditions. But God sent a fog to slow me down. Yeah. And I said, God, once again, that aha moment. And I was just like, wow, I was still a little upset. Could you maybe take the ice off the road? But no, God's like, I need you to be there for your daughter. And God will answer our prayers, and God will protect us, but God gives us free will, and God knew that if I would have kept driving fast, he wouldn't be able to stop me. My free will I could have caused an accident. I might not have been able to see my daughter that night, but God said, no, we're going to send you a fog. And I could just feel it was God saying, I'm slowing you down so you can get to your daughter. I got to the hospital, and as soon as I got to the hospital, I was up in time to be with my wife. We had a few minutes before I gave birth to my daughter.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. And even with my daughter, I've written down stories of things that God has already been doing in her life, because I want her to know a God at a young age. I want her to know about a God that I didn't know about at her age. A God that answers prayers, a God that, she can trust. I want her to know about a God who is not only her defender, but her provider and her healer. And so I've taken down these things, and, the time when my daughter was sick, where the doctors didn't know what was going on, and we had to rush her to the hospital, and I'm praying, and she's better. And people couldn't answer these questions. And you know what? Like, those are my favorite time, is when someone tries to answer a question of a God moment and they are stuttering and they're just, well, it could be this. No, you know what? I believe in a God who did this.
Yeah, amen.
You know, and yeah, and so that brings me to today. And it's funny because it was once told to me that God can do whatever He wants to do, however He wants to do it. And He chooses to work in our lives because He loves us. And I don't know what you guys are going through today. There are times when I don't feel I'm deserving of this love. There are times when I'm like, I don't deserve you. I messed up. Even today, there are times even in the last 24 hours, I messed up. And I'm like, God, just I'm not even deserving. And, it's times like that I remember, Jesus saved the sinners, and, God, is not done with me yet. And so, that's my story.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us and for encouraging us in our faith through your testimony and through your faith. So if it's okay, I have a couple of questions for you.
Go ahead.
All right. So my first question is, what did God reveal to you about Him or His character that really impacted you? Because I know you mentioned you grew up in the Catholic Church, and then there was a point in which your faith just started to come alive when you were singing that song. So what kind of led to that just really stood out to you?
I think it was when I went to Halifax. I had to take a step of faith. I had, at this time going to Halifax, I still did not know God, and I still did not know Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior, and I didn't know God the way I know Him now. I still had to take that step of faith. And it was, every day that we worship, we choose to worship. And even on days that I get off work, sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I had a bad day, I choose to lift my hands and worship. And that was what I did there. And I had to step out in faith and say, God, here I am. And I just gave myself to God. And at that time, God said, all right, here's some things going on in your life. And I'm going to be the God of, what you need in those things. When I needed, God to be my provider, I'm going to be that provider. The healer for the lady that fell. That was God saying, someone stepped out of in a faith, but I'm going to show you something through her healing. And in that time, I was healed, from some of my unbelief. And that's,
It's really good. The next question I have is, why or what made you believe that you could trust God in those hard times? Like when you were talking about back in 2015, when you went to Nepal and there was all the earthquakes.
A lot of times it was my past belief, going through the past, but also going through my scripture, in reading the Bible, in memorizing the Bible, of just a few scriptures that, reminded me that, God is, He is my provider, He is my healer, but He is also, the one who walketh by me. He's my shepherd, and as sheep, the sheep are never afraid. Even if the wolf is over there, the sheep are never afraid when the shepherd are with them. And sometimes we have to choose to trust in God. It's not easy sometimes. And it's when we look back at it and we look, whoa, that was so awesome. It's like a roller coaster ride. You trust in God, and then you look back at what you just went through and you're like, that is so awesome. And sometimes that's what it is you have to choose to trust in Him and have faith and remember what the Bible says about God's faithfulness.
It's really good. So the last question I have is, you said you would tell us about what the color of your hat means.
Yes. So this, it's actually, they call it scarlet.
Okay.
I call it red.
Yeah. Fair.
So, as I mentioned, my police uniform, I wear a black uniform.
Right.
The one difference between me and other police officers is even in my black uniform,
Right.
I wear this red beret. And there's a lot of history that goes behind the red beret. It's called the identifier.
Right.
And it's where other soldiers wear a green beret or a black beret or a blue beret. People are able to see me as a police officer. So when I go into a building, they see me with my red beret.
Right.
And being at Remembrance Day, a little bit of a history lesson. The military police overseas used to direct soldiers towards where the enemy was. You know, they would get to a point where they're like, the enemy is this way, not that way.
Right.
And so a lot of the times they would wear either a red helmet or a red beret, and they have a nickname for us they call meatheads. So
very nice.
And then that's what I thought first. But in war, the best place to be is underground in a trench where all you could see are your eyes. And so the soldiers were told, meet the heads. So when you're being given a mission, you're saying, you're going to get to this point right here, meet heads. So you're going to meet the head of the military police officer, who is then going to poke his head up and say, the enemy's over there.
Okay.
And then that's where the term meathead comes from, and also where the red beret as well comes from.
Interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting information to have.
Thank you for hearing it. I do have one more thing I'd like to share.
Yeah.
We've all heard of the armor of God. I'm fresh out of armor of God. I'm wearing mine right now.
Yes.
And you're wearing yours. I have some other armor that I want you to try out.
Okay. Oh, man.
So, not much of a helmet of salvation.
Okay. Which way is this way?
Tell you to put the pants on. But, we'll see if we can get this shirt on you.
Okay.
If you want to try putting that on.
Do I look the part?
I think she's looking pretty good so far. And then our tack vest.
Okay.
So whenever, and I'll explain this right here for the boys and girls out there that are wondering what's going on here. Pastors in mostly a uniform, what I would wear overseas, what I wore when I went to Nepal, when I stopped in Kuwait. Very hot place, by the way. So what this is a Kevlar helmet, and as we can see, it's meant to stop more than just my knuckles. These are, haven't been washed, by the way. These are my uniforms that like I'm wearing right now, and this is a tack vest. And what this does is this is where you put all your rifle magazine rounds. You can put some grenades here. You have water. Oh no, your water's right here. And once again, if you don't believe I haven't washed this is probably from when I went to Kuwait in 2015. No, I think it's earlier than that. It was last year. And then sometimes you find goodies in here. I don't know if I've left any goodies in here, but
No snacks?
no snacks. Oh well. But yeah, so I thought in remembrance of Remembrance Day, I thought sometimes we should all feel what a soldier has to wear and what it looks like to look the part, because at the end of the day we're all soldiers.
Yes.
So
Definitely a weight to it.
try wearing it all day.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, thank you so much for coming in we get dressed up to the nines.
That's good.
Yeah. So boys and girls, what we're going to be doing, your challenge for this week. First of all, I think we should take Mr. Peter's challenge for us to write down our list and to start looking to see where God is fulfilling his promises and answering our prayers. But the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to write some thank you cards and some cards of encouragement to people who have served and who are currently serving in our military. All right, boys and girls, I can't wait to see you guys next week. Stay safe and we love you. God bless.
God bless.